I was going to say, everybody says, what are you scared of, right? For climate change. I want to flip that on its head. And I want to say, what's one thing related to climate change that you are actively trying to do something about? One activity that you engage in that you think helps prevent climate change or is a positive thing towards that. You can fill in the blank with that because I bet you guys have got a lot of things that you can put there. Beavers are one of them. Yeah. All right. Let me put my thing in the chat. Yeah. You can put more if you have more. Oh, I love this. Okay, so Randy's talking about solar panels. I'd like to see solar panels on every building in the US. I agree. But brag about something you're doing, Randy. Brenda is bringing back the beavers. Cool work. And she's raising butterflies as pollinators. Jeff's talking about his wonderful 700 olive trees that are doing some CO2 for us and enriching the soil as well. Harry's a turn off the lights kind of guy. Good for you. I have an electric car. Jada's doing wanting more public transit for everybody. Terry's given us her email address, which is really sweet. Susie Cummings, eat less meat, especially beef. Right on. Donna, having their home be more energy efficient, and they're driving electric cars. Linda Chaffin's into pollinator plants. Fantastic. Randy's got solar with Tesla batteries, and they're driving an electric car. Fantastic. Great. I'm loving this. Diane's talking about removing plants within the 5 feet of the house. That's a great thing. I'm wondering about climate change and how that has to do that. It won't ignite. Maybe that's your angle on that. Sharon's talking about using native plants and that need as little water as possible, eating less meat, using a hybrid car, having high efficiency appliances. Cool. I guess I knew you guys were all doing stuff, but that's really great. Yeah, Randy's talking about eating lower on the food chain. Wow, so many benefits from that, right? Just to the, not only to the earth, but to our bodies. Great. All right. Thank you for that. So welcome everybody. I anticipated that it would be a smaller group of people today. It's just kind of the weather and kind of where people's heads are at. We had a big expo yesterday, so some of us are a little tired out from that. I just want to welcome everyone. And I will turn over the meeting to Harry at this point because he's going to introduce Jaida and they're going to be talking about climate today. All right, I will be quiet.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to introduce Jaida Nabayan. She's the principal climate analyst for Sonoma County, and today she is going to be presenting on, let me get this name right, Sonoma County's Climate Resiliency Comprehensive Action Plan, as well as, gathering some feedback and, figuring out where we can fit into all of this. And without further ado.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. Hi, everyone. It's great to meet all of you. I loved all those answers in the chat. Sounds like you figured everything out, so I don't really need to be here, but since we're here already, I'd love to share my screen and give a short presentation about the work we're doing, what has kind of led up to it, where we're at in the planning process, and then how you could provide input and hopefully shape and impact the plan as much as you see fit. I'm thinking I'll present, and then either y'all can drop questions in the chat as I'm talking, or we could just do all questions after the presentation and then move into more of a let's talk about it phase. So with that in mind, I'm going to pull up my screen. And then, oh. Awesome. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, awesome. Great. Okay. So as I mentioned, my name is Jaida. I'm with the Climate Action and Resiliency Division at the County Administrator's Office for the County of Sonoma. So it's the CAO as a department, and then we're a division within the CAO. We were originally created, as many of you probably already know, due to PG&E settlement funds that were given to the county from the 2017 Tubbs fire. So we were created in 2021 and actually had a time duration of 3 years. And one of our big projects that we were hoping to put together by the end of that 3 years was the Climate Resilience Comprehensive Action Plan, which I'll just call the CAP moving forward in this conversation because it is a long name. Clearly we're not at that point yet, because otherwise we'd be going to the board like next week. But we're hoping to take this plan to the board in mid-August for consideration and adoption. And we're hoping to get your input to help shape that process. Happy to also answer questions about timeline related to our division, et cetera, moving forward. So just so we're all kind of operating with the same language and on the same page about information, I wanted to bring up the strategic plan. So the 5-year strategic plan was approved by the board in 2021. And this essentially outlined 5 goals. And well, it didn't outline 5 goals. It had different pillars. So one was the climate action resiliency pillar, which CARD was created out of, the resilient infrastructure pillar, the racial justice and equity pillar, and 2 more. So it's a great plan. But just to give you some more context, the climate action and resiliency pillar had 5 main goals. It was continuing to invest in wildfire preparedness, invest in community resiliency to become carbon neutral, because the board put together this plan to essentially say we want to become carbon neutral, zero waste, and climate resilient by 2030. The 3rd goal was tied to making all the county facilities zero waste. Goal 4 was essentially focused on reducing emissions from county fleet vehicles. And this was also informed by different state policies that have come down the pipeline since 2021. And then the last goal was specifically focused on mitigating the impacts of climate change through different land conservation work. So, and just one more thing, it's not just CARD working on all these initiatives. We do a lot of partnerships with Ag and Open Space, Permit Sonoma, Office of Equity, who am I missing? Sonoma Water and DEM as well, to make sure that we're focusing on these different goals. And there's also sub goals within each of these goals. So CARD was created, and we were hoping to put together this plan to become carbon neutral, zero waste, and climate resilient by 2030. So there were a bunch of foundational studies we obviously had to create due to the fact that data was a little bit lacking in terms of how much CO2 we were emitting, where those big sources are coming from, what does that look like, and where can we make impact. So some of the studies we conducted were a municipal zero waste audit and characterization study. I'll also share these slides afterward in case anyone wants to click through these studies, or feel free to follow up with me via email. Someone remind me to put my email in the chat. But the zero waste study essentially looked at 7 different facility types. So offices versus the airport versus detention centers versus maintenance, courtyards. So they all had different waste compositions. And this was essentially supposed to help us figure out where are the biggest sources of waste and how can we help mitigate them? So this study has helped inform a lot of our waste-related measures that we're currently drafting and hoping to do a cost-benefit analysis around. The second study was the municipal greenhouse gas emissions audit. So this essentially was looking at countywide facilities, transit, any other landscaping related waste emissions that we create as a county entity, and what are potential opportunities to mitigate that. So not surprisingly, a lot of our emissions are related to our fleet operations and using our vehicles. This could be just regional parks using them for park rangers, the sheriff's office, our rentals, our bus fleet. You get the point. So that's helping to inform some of our work as well. And then the third one, it was a countywide carbon stock inventory and potential sequestration study. So this study was essentially supposed to speak more to the landscape aspect of carbon sequestration and potential stock, because I'll show you the wedge in a bit, but basically we emit X amount of carbon dioxide. We emit X amount of emissions into the air, and because we're trying to be carbon neutral, we have a lot of potential in our lands to sequester a lot of carbon to reach that goal. So that was part of the reason that plan was created, and it's more so focused on potential lands measures and also wildfire risk reduction, as well as fuel reduction strategies as well. And then the last one, I know there's so many, is the municipal energy plan. So this energy plan is an audit. It was taken to the board as of last Tuesday, and it was approved at the lowest package, but essentially this is supposed to be a roadmap for electrifying all of the municipal buildings in our region. So I want you to take away from this, like high level, this is very much focused on municipal operations and municipal entities, groups, etc. And that's why I'm so interested in talking to y'all today, because while we do have a very strong lens for what the municipal roadmap measures engagement can look like in the future, we've had to supplement a lot of our engagement from a community lens based off of conversations like these. And unfortunately, the county does not have direct control over landowners. So for example, we cannot tell, I'm blanking on who the person with the olive trees was, but we cannot tell the person with the olive trees like, hey, you need to buy an electric car and you need to sequester carbon on your lands using these XYZ climate smart practices. We just don't have that jurisdiction over people. So we are in direct control of county facilities, county lands, county operations. So we are definitely targeting that in our plan, but we know we cannot reach our goals without community buy-in and community support. So a lot of the work y'all already mentioned in the chat, like, is helping in a lot of great ways, and we're hoping to further amplify that through this plan and also provide resources in whatever capacity people need to make sure that we can reach this goal. So high level, I want to talk a little bit more about the greenhouse gas study and then the carbon sequestration study. So I'm going to have you look at the right side of the screen where you see this wedge analysis. Basically, we broke it down into different wedges. The greenish shade of wedge is all the state and federal policies that will essentially lead to different reductions until 2030, 2045. So we have those projections built into our analysis to reach carbon neutrality. And then the beigeish brown segment is potential county actions. So this can include telework policies, waste reduction measures like reusing foodware, facility energy efficiency, things I had already mentioned. And then that still leaves like an emissions gap, as you can see, that entire gray wedge to reach carbon neutrality by 2030. So we're really trying to think and be innovative about how we reach that goal while also keeping in mind that our communities still have to become resilient, and that is our top priority. And we also don't have control necessarily over community members. So we need the partnership, we need the buy-in, we need everyone involved. And as you can, if you're interested, the left side of the screen shows the breakdown of greenhouse gas emissions for the county. A lot of it is contributing to energy, but it's transitioned a lot. And this is, from my perspective, perhaps maybe not the most accurate depiction because of the pandemic. A lot of things have fluctuated since then. So the numbers are not as reflective as they could be of 2024 compared to 2021. So just keep that in mind. And moving on to carbon sequestration. So as you all know, Sonoma County is a beautiful place, has lots of diverse nature for everyone to enjoy. And another great aspect of that is that there is approximately 100 million megatons of CO2 in carbon stocks. So sequestered, not going anywhere. That is potentially a hazard if everything starts setting on fire. But we also know that most of the carbon stock is concentrated in the forested areas in the west and the east, as well as wetlands in the south. So a lot of carbon sequestration potential there. And what we're hoping is that our community members can help us, one, create more resilience in our natural landscape. And a lot of people are already doing this. They're applying mulch and compost, rebuilding out urban green spaces, but also, you know, building out that buffer of 5 feet from the house so that you're wildfire resilient as well, right? And so this creates a lot of potential to sequester carbon in our natural landscapes. Sonoma County only owns about 10% of land in the entire Sonoma County area. I think it's 10%. 10% of, I want to say it's 12. 10% of land in all of Sonoma County is under county jurisdiction. So that means a whopping 90-ish% is all private and needs to be implemented on private lands. Hence, part of the reason we're trying to engage with folks and hear from them, like, what are their barriers? What's a priority to them? And why are we not seeing as much buy-in into some of these practices versus others, or if that's just not top of mind. So high level, that is partially what we're doing to put together our Climate Resilience Comprehensive Action Plan. This is a draft outline of the different breakdowns of what we're focusing on. And a lot of these do have measures that are municipal facing and then also community facing. For example, transportation, right? We have the municipal facing ones where we have to electrify all the buses, but on the community side, we're building out those bus networks so people are more incentivized and interested in taking public transit wherever they need to go. And we're hoping to get, and we're also building out a community engagement section. So we're hoping to hear from community members how they want to be engaged and what hasn't been working, what are barriers for them to become more resilient, and how can the county help you navigate that challenge or provide some type of resource to help you be resilient long term. And just a high level overview of our timeline. So in August of last year, we actually had a climate workshop with some folks. It was cool. I was actually not with the county at that time, so I wasn't there for that and I cannot testify to it, but I heard it was cool. And then we had a community town hall focused on climate that was hosted by Hopkins and Gorin in November. And there was a huge turnout for that. People gave their thoughts. It was really great. As part of that, we afterwards started to create some of the policies from some of that initial engagement. And since then have been drafting, reiterating, rewriting a lot of these measures and policies and hoping to hear from folks more and more like, what is not being addressed? Where do you see concerns, etc. And as part of this, we are putting together a cost benefit analysis to basically say like, hey, if you electrify all of our bus fleet, it will cost X amount of money, but here is the great return on investment because transportation is the biggest emitter of emissions in the county, depending on how you slice it. And so as part of that, we're doing the cost benefit analysis, still doing community engagement and writing the narrative and taking the plan to the board on August 13th to present it, hopefully for adoption. Would love for all of y'all to come and just give your thoughts and feelings. No pressure though. And so what we're hoping to hear from you is, one, how would you like to be engaged? Two, how have you been navigating climate resilience within the communities you work in? And what are the gaps, right? What needs to be addressed? And how can the county better support you and your work that you're currently doing? And lastly, more holistically, how do you see your work being supported by the Comprehensive Action Plan, or the CAP? And I think that's it. I think that's all my slides. Yes. So I know that was a lot of information. I really didn't think I was going to talk that long, but here we are. So I am happy to take any questions y'all may have. Hopefully I can answer them, but let's stop sharing screen. Oh, there we go. So I'm happy to hear any questions maybe at first, and then I can pull up the questions on a doc and we can like talk through them if anyone's interested. I know it was a lot of information. I apologize. I really thought it would take 5 minutes and then we would just hang out on this call for the next hour, but lo and behold.
Jaida, I have a question.
Yes.
I believe it was either this year or last year that the state of California required that all green waste go in the green bin and be recycled, or go to a giant composter in the sky or something.
Mhm.
And for us, I can say that we're doing it. I don't see a whole lot of participation from neighbors doing it or other people that I talk to. And I'm just wondering if the state or the county does any kind of uh, compliance checking to find out if people are actually complying with it. And because I think it's a pretty important thing to do, and it's easy for us, each person to do, but I don't know if people are doing it. Do you know anything about that? Or
That
can you
is a
speak to it?
great question, Randy. So we've been coordinating a lot with Zero Waste Sonoma. I have heard of this policy, but I'm not too familiar with the ins and outs of it. I will say high level though, there has been a lack of compliance, as you've seen. And that is a policy we've actually drafted up, is to make sure that everyone gets into compliance. Of course, this is partially municipal facing, so compliance with all of our department buildings and facilities that we have as a county. And then community focused work, like how we can incentivize compliance with policy, because to a certain extent, some people just don't have the information or don't know how to properly dispose of certain waste. So that's another barrier and challenge. And we have to make sure we're starting from the base that people have feasible access to, right? And building up from there. So that is something we've drafted as policy to help us. We are still refining it though. So great question. And short answer, if you squint hard enough, there is compliance. But if you open your eyes, sorry, Randy, we're a little bit behind on that. I will agree with that. Thanks for asking.
I did a tour of Recology recently, and they actually, for the blue cans, which is the recycled material, not the yard waste, but that material, they actually do audits and submit information to the homeowner when they're not in compliance. So they're doing some of it, but I don't know that they're able to get to that many. But they do have a program where they do look at what goes in the blue cans.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
So,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'll just add my 2 cents to this. So one comment is, it seems like it would be a really great idea if county agencies were the role models for the rest of us, that our institutions showed us that this was the proper way to do things, because I do not see that. The second thing is that, yes, we have all been out on the street when Recology comes by and dumps the green bin in with the garbage, which happens a lot. So, those are mixed messages that the public gets about their efforts to try to do the right thing that are really important, that we have consistency, especially from our institutions, showing that they care about this as well. I'm thinking about the jails. I'm thinking about the large institutions that are feeding people that should be composting, and showing that this is a priority and an important part of the way that we all do things, not just us homeowners, but also those, when we go to meetings at the county, there should be a compost bin there for us when we're having lunch with, at a county meeting. That's just a small example. It's just a
Phyllis?
suggestion.
Yeah,
I want to mention, believe it or not, the gray can and the green can look like they go into the same truck. But where I am out in Fitzhugh Meadows, I see the garbage can every Friday morning. The truck has a thing that moves. So when the gray can goes in, then the partition goes over and the green can goes in that, and then the partition moves back. So it is being, because we thought, why are we bothering to separate this? But Recology, the trucks we have do separate it. You just have to see it from the side. That's all.
I am aware of those trucks
Okay.
as well. We have different trucks for each of our
Oh.
bins.
Okay.
So, that's maybe I'm confusing things. Maybe sometimes we have those two, whatever, double things, but that would be a great educational thing for Recology to do then, for those of us that feel like, wow, my
Yeah.
effort's being wasted, we should be educated about that. That would be helpful as well.
Yeah.
Actually, for anyone that's interested, they do a great tour of their recycling center, and it was a real eye-opener.
I do have something to say as well, actually. I would love to be using public transportation more, but I do feel like there is, I mean, it's not exactly like I think everyone who's taken the bus like down to Santa Rosa from North County has like seen someone like doing some wild stuff on the bus at either time. And just like I think making, public transit maybe more of like a comfortable place for, for people to actually commute, because I think, and again, I think electrifying is a phenomenal idea, especially truly it's one of the biggest polluters we have in the county. But having it just so it like, it feels a little bit more accessible to people. And so it's just a more of a legitimate option. And I guess another follow-up question, would there be any thoughts on maybe, trying to revamp the more of like the rail network, or is that something you guys are not a part of whatsoever?
Yeah, so we have been working closely with SMART and also SCTA, and they're I don't want to say revamping is the right word, but essentially they're trying to create connectivity for the first and last mile, because as many of you who have taken transit know, or the SMART train know, that they don't run through the main transit hub corridors. So people have to walk from the SMART station to the bus stop or whatever. So they are building out like shuttle services as part of that connective tissue to make sure people can get from one place to another. That's how they're trying to bridge that gap. So even though it's not all in one place, and it's not shifted over, like the bus stations being shifted over, because the rail line, that would be extremely expensive to like lift it all up out the ground and then move it like 2 blocks closer. That is the happy medium option that they've decided on. So it is being addressed, but I think it's not going to be launching until I believe SMART is finished, and I believe they're opening the Windsor stop next summer, if I'm remembering that correctly, based off of the timeline they have.
Correct, and they actually are gonna have a shuttle from that, I think, or they already do, to the airport.
Yes, the airport as well. Yeah, that is correct.
And there's a trolley downtown right now, is that correct? That
There
goes
is a
from Smart to
trolley,
the trolley
yeah. It just,
downtown Santa Rosa.
yeah, it just doesn't have like as frequent of a cycle that people are interested in. So they're like, oh, I might as well walk. So that is another option as well.
So Jada, what kind of questions do you have for us? How can we help?
Yeah, so I really loved all of this input so far. One thing I really want to ask about though is engagement from your perspective, like holistically from a county entity or just from plans in your neighborhood that have been put together. What do you think has been effective engagement methods for you? And what do you think has been helpful, especially since all of you are community leaders in different ways and talk to a lot of folks about different climate related issues? What are a lot of pain points that you're seeing when you're a community leader on the ground talking about climate or working on climate resilience that you're hoping could be addressed in some way? And I'm thinking this could be funding, so you can continue to hand out sandbags to people, or translation services, because we have a very diverse community in Sonoma County and resources are not very accessible in terms of different languages. Is it like educational materials about what climate change means, so you don't have to do the heavy lift of re-educating everyone you come across? What are those pain points and gaps that you're seeing in your climate work that you're hoping could be addressed in some way? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the county being involved in some capacity, but if the county could lend some support, we're hoping we could, and we're hoping to also elevate the work you're already doing. So what's working, what's not, and what could be better? Yes, Linda.
My main issue is that I live in Cloverdale and I love it and I want to stay here. But there are no transportation options other than the bus. And as an older person, to have to try to get on the bus and get to a doctor's appointment and going through the hubs and changing and walking from the bus stops to different, there are no other options. I've brought it up with SCTA and with the different boards and advisory councils. Everybody says, oh yeah, you're right. And nothing ever is actually engaged with. And so as a result, I mean, it's not climate change, it's individual life changes that are important to try to factor in. So we don't have taxi, we don't have paratransit only if you're disabled. We don't have Uber, Lyft, nothing. There's no portal to portal type of transportation available. That's important to the older population here.
Gotcha. Okay.
And to bring that home in another way related to disaster preparedness.
Yes.
Linda's community in particular, I mean, Healdsburg has some transportation for older adults, but imagine, you know, Del Webb's and all these senior living communities that are in Cloverdale and around this area that can't get out, because especially the homebound people that are no longer driving. I mean, how are those people going to get out? And hopefully they're part of the COPE program and they've got connections through that kind of work that we've been doing. But that's a lot of older adults and think of Spanish speakers and other people with disabilities who may not necessarily be older adults, but others in our communities that need to know what's happening and be able to get out.
And not just to, I brought this up, and thank you so much for saying that, Priscilla, because I actually brought this up at a community input forum, and everybody looked at the board, looked at each other and said, wow, that's really an issue. I know, we'll do an advertising campaign And we'll put a lot of posters out that remind people that they're on their own and they have to help each other. And I have to tell you, time out. I'm the one that brought it to you. We know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's
Mhm.
been frustrating. That's all.
Yeah,
you.
that sounds extremely frustrating. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious what COPE is doing to solve that issue and whether you believe that's the right solution. And if it is the right solution, should it be expanded? And if how you would appreciate expansion of that solution.
Yeah, so the idea is, our whole premise is around neighbor helping neighbor. That's kind of the core
Right.
concept of the work that we're doing. So our hope is that we're connecting people in their neighborhoods, and so I know that I need to look in on Mrs. Smith down the road because I know that she doesn't drive, or
Okay.
whatever it might be. She doesn't hear well. She may not know that there's a fire happening.
Right.
That kind of information is what we try to know about our neighbors. And hopefully in advance of something bad happening, we have a plan, or she has a
Right.
plan around a family member coming to get her on a red flag day, so she doesn't have to worry about evacuating if something bad happened. Those kinds of things. That's kind of what we're up to.
Okay.
We could we could build on that, like with a volunteer driver program where people are specified and people know who they can call. But at this point, because there's not a centralized organization that would be overseeing something like that, that has even floundered so far. We tried to do something through the senior center, but
Okay.
so
So there is no
it's a
core
good
group.
idea.
Yeah, so no core group to implement, but
Right.
that solution sounds promising because y'all know.
It would
Okay.
be helpful. Thank you
Gotcha.
for listening.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Donna, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just like to add, to what people have said. I think we need to look at this in terms of both sort of what I think of as the informal support network, community, neighbors, people helping one another on the one hand, versus sort of the formal support network, that is to say, publicly funded organizations and forms of assistance and so on. And I think COPE does a terrific job, at least we try, as Priscilla and others have said, to build out that informal network, to make connections, neighbors with neighbors, so that when there's an emergency, good things can happen. The problem, however, is that because neighbors and friends and so forth are not necessarily assigned to do certain things. People go on vacations, people may not be around and available when an emergency takes place. So even though the informal network does a great job in certain things, it often is not as reliable for everybody over time as organizations and things that are publicly supported. Sorry, I'm water, but that's so. In other words, the one really can't substitute for the other. That's what I'm saying.
Right, yeah. Hence why it'd be important to have like a centralized organization, for example, providing the shuttle service for someone who could not drive or someone who needs to be picked up in a disaster. Okay, that's helpful. I'm wondering if there's any other, the shuttles to move people out of disaster zones, if you will, or disaster related events, was a great example. Is there other instances where a disaster is happening and typically we're depending on our neighbors for this aspect, but it would be helpful to have it in an organized, centralized group designated as the effort person or entity?
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize Terry's comments in the chat around what we learned from from the 4 major fires that we've endured is that we need to be self-reliant. And that's a heavy burden for a fair portion of our society, right? That it has a hard time being self-reliant. So I think that's the rub, is doing our best to be as self-reliant, and as we used to say in the Midwest, of pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps and making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and doing all that we can in advance, and connecting with our neighbors, as Donna has said, through COPE and other things, but having the structural barriers opened up so that all of us can have the support that we need, I think is the piece that we're talking about.
Right.
And that goes for all kinds of disasters. I mean, fortunately, we haven't had a earthquake recently, but that would be disastrous for a lot of our neighborhoods, as far as access in and out of our areas. Certainly Fitch Mountain has constant flooding issues every winter. So getting, like you were mentioned, sandbanks, getting sandbanks to elders' houses to help them support their house and being safe. I'm noticing that Chris has his hand up, so I wanted to make sure to give him a chance to ask his question.
Yes, thank you. Adding on to what you just stated about the community being self-reliant, we have, and this is here in the Rivers Bend community, here in Hillsburg, we have actually done something along that line, at least in collecting information about the residents in this community. And what we did is that a committee of us got together and came up with a survey. And with that survey, we started to circulate that around the community, collecting some very basic information, such as the number of individuals in the household, are there individuals with mobility problems, for example, or anything that might be related. And we collated all of that information into a rudimentary database, which is in effect now, should something happen and we must rely on ourselves to survive whatever might come along. Now, the fire season is upon us again, and I'm sure at some point we'll be getting together to review the information that we already have, of course, because people are moving in or they're moving out or what have you. So I know the database needs to be updated, but we do have something in place should something happen.
Yeah, great. Chris is talking about Alfred Goes by Chris, by the way, in case you're wondering why I keep calling him Chris.
I was curious what else you could call him.
I just happen to know that about
Yeah,
him.
we're living life.
Why does she keep calling that Chris? So what you're talking about is what we call the COPE survey, and all of our communities have implemented this, just so you know, Jaida, and collected information on each of these households to better understand what the needs of these households are, and also have contact information so that we can reliably contact people in case of an emergency. So and it also is bi-directional. So if Chief Tuberville calls and calls Rivers Bend and says, there's a fire near you, I need to know where those people are that need extra help getting out, it would actually be Healdsburg Fire. I'm picking on Marshall because he's here. But, Chief Boaz would call and Chris would say, yes, I have a list of people and the addresses and their phone numbers, and here we are, ready to go. Not, we got to figure out where these people are, but we already know where those folks are. So that's why that's so important. And
That's super helpful. Thank you for that context. Donna, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I just wanted to circle back for a second to a comment that Linda made earlier vis-a-vis transportation and going to a, let's say, a regularly scheduled doctor appointment. I think we also have to keep in mind, as we think about these issues, distinctions between what we do in emergency situations, right, versus the kind of support people may need on a sort of regular and ongoing basis. I mean, I think from my point of view, I think COPE is especially helpful in terms of, oh my God, there's an emergency, there's a fire, we need to marshal
our resources together. We need to check on our neighbors. We need to, spring into action, et cetera. I think, that's great, obviously, and it's important, but it's also something different from the kind of day-to-day, week-to-week kind of support that people may need, where folks may be just a little less willing to call upon their neighbors for that kind of, ongoing assistance. And I think that's one of the areas, again, where, as I made the distinction earlier, where the more formal network is really important to have that, built out and available so that people can rely on that and don't feel like they're, I wouldn't feel this way if I provided regular assistance to a neighbor, but I understand that neighbors don't always feel like they don't want to be a burden on their next door neighbor and don't want to call on them all the time. So that's another reason I think why we really need to think in terms of complementary and a kind of a continuum and how these systems sort of interface, rather than just saying, well, if this is something to be self-reliant, here's what we need to do,
Right. Yeah. That's a super helpful distinction. So I know we're like very much in the disaster emergency space in our heads, but like also open to like hearing about the daily needs that you as citizens needs as well. Rebecca, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my mother lived in Chico and I helped her, I think on an annual basis, there was a form that was sent to her from the public health department in the county, collecting information on anyone that would need special assistance during an emergency. And you completed the form and mailed it back. And I'm not sure, what the whole system was, but it was definitely trying to capture those people that might need extra help during an emergencies.
Okay. That's helpful. I was not aware of that. Thank you. Awesome. Okay.
Susie.
Go on. Yes.
I couldn't find the hand. There's some discussion about having a list of vulnerable people who might need help during an emergency, for first responders to assist. I've read some discussion of that maybe it's not always a good idea. I guess there's some debate about it, whether whether people may depend on it or think that someone's going to come. So what we've told people in Clover Springs, because our association is very lawsuit shy, so I try to tell people that they need to let their neighbors know if they're if they're a person who might need help, or see if there's someone they might be able to help, rather than depend on outside help, mainly because we want to have people be proactive, and they won't, but at least if you have people who could help, reach out to the people who need help and establish a relationship so that someone will trust them, then that might be a way of assisting people during an emergency. Because I think there's been some thought that if there's a list, that people are going to say, well, I don't have to do anything, someone's going to come get me.
Okay. Gotcha.
Where we're trying to get people to take responsibility and help each other out, and really emphasize it's your neighbor who's going to be your best source of assistance in an emergency.
Gotcha. Okay.
Great.
Just a
Thanks,
thought.
Susie. Yeah, Diane, I noticed your hand up.
Thank you. I was speaking with Tom, who was at the expo yesterday from Petaluma, and he shared that people in that community are more reticent about sharing information, a more suburban setting, and people maybe not knowing their neighbors or not wishing to share information. So as much as they really like the COPE model, they're going to modify it some, and instead of mapping out resources, they're going to map out needs. you sort of who's in most need. But what it said to me is, I wonder if our COPE community members who have significant, be in particular need, would want that information shared more broadly within the COPE community. How we hold the information within our COPE community. We don't share it, and that's part of our plus. But there might be a desire for people to opt in to a directory of mobility need, because sometimes it's somebody who's not in the specific community who might have more time or resources, or not being in quite the same circumstance. It's saying to me, like during the Mill Creek episode, I wasn't as under the same duress, and I might have been in a circumstance if somebody had been able to shuttle someone to a certain place, that I might have been able to help. I don't know if that's something we want to undertake or whatever, but I thought it was interesting, this fellow from Petaluma who's in charge of emergency management for that city, how they're going to be mapping needs more than resources.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, because then it would be all
and then like who takes responsibility for this list and da da da. It's Susie and Priscilla have walked us down this road before, and then do family members say, well, I don't have to take care of this because COPE is doing it or the county's doing it. So Susie, that's a really important point, that you don't want people to think that that it is taken care of.
Yeah, a potential misconception. Yeah, that's a good point. Susie, yes.
I found the hand. So for my group, I have 10 homes, and then I have an adopted 10 homes. But for my group, I asked them if they would like to share their contact information among themselves, just their group. And I only had one of the 10 say no. And then I had an ice cream social about a week and a half ago, and I passed out and where they got to meet because some of them haven't really, they know the person's there, but they don't really talk to them. So they got to talk to each other. And I passed out those address lists, and I explained that the reason that I'd gathered them all together, besides that I wanted them to know each other, was because in an emergency, I might not be able to come help them, and they might be better served by reaching out to their neighbors. And so they understood, one of the people said, I knew there was going to be a catch to the ice cream. But I thought that was a good way to introduce that list and get and share the information. Everybody was willing to share. So it's phone number and email. It wasn't any medical information. Or emergency contacts or anything like that. It was just the phone number and email and their address and the name of the people, because you might know the first name but not know the last name, so that sort of thing. And I really think that if they can and I gave them a special folder, a red folder to put it in, so that during an emergency maybe they could find it because that's also a problem. But I thought that might even encourage them to invite some people over for dinner, or a cocktail hour, or, wine on the driveway or something, just so that they could proceed with getting to know each other a little bit better, just foster that community spirit. So, but I know ours are supposed to be the information not available to anybody, just the block captain and the chair of the committee. So we changed ours so that it said, and to other people, and to people who might be providing emergency assistance, which could be CERT. So anyway, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I wish I could have gone to the ice cream social on a day like this. I had one quick question. This might be a general question for everyone, but in terms of getting community buy-in into designated, we'll call them chapters of COPE, different communities, right? Like, where have you seen the biggest issues for people willing to like buy into like, hey, we need to be self-reliant. Give me your information. Let's go to an ice cream social together. And what have been the easiest levers for you to pull to ensure that people added themselves to these databases in whatever capacity?
So I can start, and I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of good info to add, just because I've been around for a while. I would say that just as Petaluma, they identified confidentiality as an issue. I think initially a lot of people thought that their communities were going to have a big issue with confidentiality. The truth is that in most communities, people have already exchanged emails and phone numbers. They've done that at the mailbox, right? Because can you take care of my cat? I'm going to be out of town, or whatever it might be. Some of that informal networking has happened. And I think really COPE is just taking that formal network and making it a little bit more formal, and expanding and encouraging more and more people to do that exchanging of phone numbers and getting to know each other. So I do think that there was I know in one community in particular, there was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Liability and around having this information, and lots of barriers going up around just perceived issues around confidentiality. But I have not really seen that come up to fruition. I mean, we have 50 communities now, and people are readily sharing their information because they understand the importance of being in touch with their neighbors. So I think that having, so I would say that, again, building on that informal work network was important. I think having the support and backing of our formal institutions, our fire departments, our board of supervisors, Supervisor Gore has been tremendously supportive of our work. It took a while to get our formal institutions to support us, but they certainly have. And I think that has also been really important. And we all work together, we play together well. So that really means a lot to our communities as well. They know Chief Turbeville, they know Chief Boaz, because they are now in our communities, meeting our people, and are there answering questions and being a part of the work that we're doing. And that makes a huge difference, I think. I noticed Chris has his hand up, so I'll be quiet.
Yes, adding to that, on this matter of confidentiality, on the survey that we walked door to door with these survey forms and collected the information. So that was another good way to meet neighbors that we'd never met. But at any rate, on the survey form that we were using, we actually get they have a choice of sharing the information or not. So it states on the form consent to share. If they do, then it's marked as such, and if not, then they can trust us that the information will not be shared.
Okay.
Great. Other questions or things that people wanted to share with Jaida?
I do have another question. Y'all can feel free to tell me to stop talking. But so I want to go back to the transportation option. Like what I'm hearing so far, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Which I knew this beforehand walking into this conversation, but COPE is exemplifying different forms of self-reliance in different types of emergencies. That's cool. I want to know though, if there's specific, and it sounds like informal networks are the best ways to get trust from community members to opt into COPE. Also very cool. I'm wondering from the county's lens, like, for example, the shuttles for everyday use or in emergency situations being housed with a specific organization would be helpful. And a way that the county could help is help pursue funding to run that as an initiative constantly forever, or help create a partnership with a specific organization that COPE would be the co-lead on and help define where the routes are for the shuttles, et cetera. I'm wondering if there's other specific instances where the county could provide a lens of support, or where you think the county would be useful, not necessarily as an informal network builder, not necessarily as a form of reliance in an emergency, but maybe more so in the building of resilience. So like the outer framework to make everything easier when a disaster comes, or just in everyday life. Because again, we don't have to talk about disasters all the time. Like for example, walking door to door, right? Like, could we create a program through the county to get volunteers to do a lot of that work as well? Or pay people who are doing that work because they are community members and you have time. And I'm sure it's great. Or the ice cream socials, like funding for that, to help build that community cohesion. This is what I'm like thinking of. For, I mean, it's great. It sounds like a lot has been figured out, and I'm cool with that. I love that for everyone. I just want to know if there's anything else that it's like, oh, okay, well, if the county was offering money, we would do this as well. If the county was like able to create this partnership, we would do this as well. If the county could stop doing this, we'd be able to do this more effectively. I'm curious to hear that lens as well.
Well, everybody's so quiet. Yeah, Linda, you go.
I think having the county involved in terms of stability and longevity of any program that we talk about is essential, because otherwise what the county has done is what they're doing now, is hand everything off to, you know, the nearby organization, nonprofit that has happened to step up to the plate. And if that ED happens to leave or something, then the program falls apart. We really need to have county involvement and buy-in in order for the programs to be able to grow and be and continue. And it always comes down to the money. So the county can be the ones involved in getting 5310 Caltrans funds or ARPA national funds that come through the county and get divided out into various projects. But I really think everybody's sort of moving around, but the county has to be involved. It can't just be these individual. You're right on the money, because if you try to have it all handed out to individual COPE groups or something, that is fine for the way that we're doing business and making it work now for what we get done. But unless there's county involvement, it can't last, it can't grow, it can't stay.
Right. Okay. That's so funding to sustain all the programs.
Always comes down to the money, you know?
Yeah, you know, I will say that I shook my head vehemently when you mentioned having somebody else come and knock door to door. I would not want that. I would really want us to stay neighborhood related.
Yeah.
So that you know, Donna's knocking on her neighbor's door and making that connection, not somebody from outside making those connections. I think that those are essential. In the chat, Terry Mendelson, you know, if you want us to give you a laundry list of ways that this county could support the work that we're doing, she has on her comment there one of the top ones, right? is maintaining our roads and maintaining the vegetation in this county, making it safe for us to get in and out of our areas. That is a critical piece that is not being done by our county. And with that comes having these properties assessed, not just inspected, but assessed for their ability to be resilient, and having the money to support having the work done that needs to be done to make our homes more resilient. So the home hardening and defensible space, especially for our folks that can't afford to do it themselves, but certainly incentives would incentivize people to do the work that they need to do on their properties. So there's a huge long list of things that we I think from a fire standpoint in particular, but also goes on with flood and other things that we would like the county to support and fund that would make us safer in our communities.
That's a real helpful. Terry, I see all of your comments and I keep hearting them. So I see you and I just want to recognize. Thank you for all your comments. One last question I have, if nobody else has a response to that. Being engaged, moving forward. Does coming to a COPE session work? How do your community members like to be engaged? Are you seen as the trusted source? So any information about stuff should come through you? Or do people respond well to ice cream social hours and we need to pull up with some chocolate syrup to hang out? What methods work best to engage with people in your community? Riz, and then
Is Donna going to talk about tequila?
Yes.
Ooh, let's talk about
Actually,
it.
I was.
Margaritas, I
This
think
is-
was what I heard about Burrell.
I'll tell you what my neighborhood responds to.
Yeah.
Noted, I'm taking notes.
So in part, I actually that's funny because I really was going to talk about that in brief. I think my community looks not because I'm such a great leader or anything, but they look to me because I do take responsibility for trying to communicate with people. Okay. So if there are things that I find out about through COPE, or, we have a group me list, and if I know there's going to be a prescribed burn or something and that it's going to create smoke and I know that we're going to be able to see it, I make sure that I do my best to get that information to my neighbors, right? I mean, that is part of the COPE function, right, that we all assume. And so I think in terms of communicating with people, yeah, I mean, my neighbors probably would be somewhat more likely, at least to, whether they would do anything about it or not, at least they'd read it, right? If they thought it was coming from me. Okay. So that is number one. Number two, and this goes to the, tequila hour, right? There is nothing that's mutually exclusive about this. In other words, I can communicate with my neighbors, but my neighbors also like to get together, right? Periodically, not just for community or for, COPE focused discussions, although we do talk about, these issues when we get together, but social hours, and it doesn't always involve margaritas. We've also done, holiday cookie bake-offs and things like that, right? So those, buying into those kinds of events, I think if it were, and again, here's the, formal, informal thing going on again. I mean, if a formal organization were to say, we are going to sponsor an ice cream social or a, cocktail hour or whatever, there might be one or two people in my community who might go, but probably mostly not, right? So these are the kind of informal things then that people in the community, my community, sort of rally around. So if there were messages that some, formal organization wanted to convey, then it could be done through me in a kind of a communication way, or it could also be done when our neighbors get together as they get together, right, for these, kind of community building, socializing kinds of events.
Mhm. Awesome. Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you. Chris.
Yeah,
let's-
I think anything with food, activities, think of the culture of the communities. Some of the communities are different. They're more rural, barbecues, other things may happen depending upon what community you're talking about. Chris.
Yes, adding to what Donna has already covered, here in Rivers Bend, we have an entertainment committee whose sole purpose is to keep life interesting in the community. So, for example, we have an ongoing happy hour every Thursday starting at 5 p.m. And they're usually well attended. And it's always great to get together with neighbors, and you get to know your neighbors, and it's always cordial. We had a very successful Cinco de Mayo celebration at the clubhouse. And I think there were some 40, 45 people there for that came, and it was plenty of food and drink and revelry and the whole bit. But the importance of this is that you continue to reinforce that sense of community, and that everyone is always opening their arms and extending their hands to be the neighbor that you want to be to your neighbors. And so that comes in very handy in situations where life might not be so great, as in an emergency of some kind. And you already know your neighbors, and you probably know something about them, having met them so much. And so should something happen of great concern, then you're going to think, hey, I wonder if Susan is okay. Maybe I should check. So the entertainment committee, they're one of our big assets here, and we really appreciate them. And this keeps that sense of community going, and knowing your neighbors. Should something happen, then we already have a pretty good idea of who would be receptive to being approached if something happens, and who would not.
Right.
Great. Thank you for that. Fantastic. Diane?
There's leverage here. I'm not sure how interested you are, so we have, let's say 50 groups, there are 40 or 50 on average in each group. So if you came to one of our leadership meetings and met with 40 or 50 of us, and you should come in a really detailed, what specific information, if you were meeting individually with all these groups, would you be supplying? What information are you seeking back? So it seems to me there's a lot of leverage in working, you could have one meeting or 50 meetings, and then maybe you would have a follow-up meeting for people that had specific interest, and then that we could actually feed residents to you for a specific event. But we could at least do the first layer for you for leverage and efficiency.
Gotcha. Awesome. Damn, y'all. I didn't know D4 liked to party like that. Shout out to y'all. Like, I need to come over there more. I currently live in Santa Rosa, so I can come up there.
Jaida, I moved here from Boston.
Oh, okay.
And that's the message that I send to people. It's everything in wine. I mean, it's library and wine, and doctor's office and wine. So everything is with food and beverage.
Yeah, take advantage. Awesome. Okay, well, this has been super helpful, everyone. Thank you so much for all of your valuable input and feedback. I've definitely taken copious notes, and I'm happy to share them with anyone who's interested. But something I want to really hone in is that the county is really interested in providing support in ways that would be most fruitful to community members. So it sounds like y'all have figured a lot of stuff out, and we just want to help fill different gaps as needed. And I think we have a lot of good content to help with that. And I really appreciate your willingness to share stuff. And I would love an invite to the happy hour, the next big social event, or the ice cream event. No judgment if you don't invite me, but it has been great talking to each and every one of you.
Thank you so much for coming, Jaida. We really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. And I hope you guys have some time to enjoy the rest of the sunshine for the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So we'll see you all next month. We'll be in person again at the Healdsburg Community Center. Yippee. We've got Harry and I are cooking up a good one, we think. But we can't tell you about it because it's not confirmed yet. But I've been working in the background here trying to get it started anyway. And Harry will no doubt take it by the bull by the horns after I get it started here, which is fantastic. Marshall and I would also like to let you know that we had our Egg and Open Space grant funded for the Wooler and Chalk Hill roads. So we have 2 more Cope communities that will be able to get access to vegetation management funds. So I just wanted to let you know that. Hats off to Marshall and David for the work that they did in that getting that proposal approved. The Ag and Open Space money is getting a little bit harder to get. So that we got it is really a testament to how well he writes those proposals and how much they respect the work that he's doing. Because these are all, he's got a master plan, right? And they see that and how that all this work is connected. And that also is hats off to those of you in Cope communities, because what's happened to make this successful is that our Cope leaders go to their neighbors and ask them to be a part of these vegetation management projects. And if it wasn't us as neighbors going to them and asking them, we wouldn't have such high participation. And they see that, the funders see that we have that network in place and that we can get our neighbors to participate in these projects. So it really makes a difference what you guys are all doing. I just want you to know that. Chris, do you have a question?
Actually, just a comment, Priscilla, and this is something that just occurred to me, and it hasn't really been brought up, and that is certain special skills that members of the community might have. And I wanted to bring up that prior to moving here and living in Tampa, I was certified there. So I think that's something that in future meetings we need to discuss if people have some special skills, and I think it would be helpful for everyone to know that as well.
Great. Yeah, we have a very active CERT program here. So they would love to have you involved, and there's people on this call that can help you get connected. So yeah, we'll make that happen for sure. Thank you for that. Harry, do you remember other announcements that we wanted to make? Of course, I'm assuming all of you know Harry and know that Harry is our person. We're so excited to have Harry on board. He's slowly but surely transitioning over from Fire Safe Sonoma as a Climate Corps fellow, and he will be coming on half-time in August. So until then, he's starting to pick up things like the leadership meeting, the info session, our newsletter, and more as he's able over time. So please welcome Harry to the fold. We're excited to have his energy and skill set and all that he has experienced through Fire Safe Sonoma.
Oh, thank you so much, Priscilla. I am super, super happy to be working with you all, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to know you all extremely well over the next year or so. So yeah, I mean, I think that was pretty much it. I don't think there was really that much else. I will say I am going to be doing the newsletter, so if anyone has, anything that you think everyone would like to see, feel free to send it over to my email. I'll go ahead and get that in the chat right now.
Yeah, if you guys ever have stuff going on in your communities that you want to brag about, like Terry, you guys are doing this work day, right? you know, it helps everybody else to know what you're up to. And get ideas about how they might do things in their community. I think it really energizes other leaders to know what other folks are doing. We just had a chipper day here on Fitch Mountain as well, with the help of the fuels crew. So yeah, anything like that that you want to share, I think is great. And we'll probably resume our spotlights. Remember how we were spotlighting on each of the communities before? We'll resume those once Harry has time to do those. And Rivers Bend should be top on the list, I think. Those guys have not been involved in Rivers View. Yeah, the other one. Cool. Harry's email is in the chat. His official email. All right. I look forward to seeing you all next month. And I hope those of you working on Firewise are having a grand time with Marika making that happen. I know it takes time. Just want to compliment you on taking that on for those of you that did that. It's one more thing making your community safer. So good on you.
And I will say, when you do become a Firewise community, you'll be able to do what Terry did and ask Fire Safe Sonoma for their lovely fellows to come and help you with your workday. So you can get a little bit more bang for your volunteering buck.
Had no idea I could do that.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
We try to do it like when we every now and then we can't make it to one. Like we had the trailer out for the expo, which, you know, we were all very, very busy during the expo, so we weren't able to go to that one. But Fire Safe Sonoma really does like to try to send someone out there, you know, at least be there and help out for when people do rent the trailer.
Cool. Thanks for that. All right. Anything else? Any other announcements? I'm sorry, I forgot to do this at the beginning. So if anybody has any other announcements, please let me know. All right. See you guys all in June. Thank you so much for being here.